This is Practical Pivots, the podcast for startup leaders, founders, and investors asking, how do we unleash that next wave of growth? Join me for sharp conversations with an eclectic ensemble of experts to guide companies to disrupt the undisruptible, turn setbacks into scale-ups, and transform plateaus into pivots. I'm Steve Pakras, and this week I'm welcoming back someone who's been a longtime collaborator, a former guest, and a razor-sharp force in B2B growth, Rachel Shayne. Rachel and I first connected years ago through our shared obsession with strategy that actually works. Since then, she co-founded R&D B2B, a marketing consultancy that helps high-growth, high-complexity companies figure out what to say, who to say it to, and how to scale it with impact. Her background spans leadership roles in brand, digital, and marketing strategy across both startups and global enterprises. In this conversation, we cover how she defines marketing and growth and why it's about way more than prospecting, the channels that actually work in today's B2B landscape, the strategies she's never used now, even though she once swore by them, and what it looks like to walk into a new client engagement and surface the problem they can't quite say out loud. This is a masterclass in modern B2B marketing from someone who's lived across industries, cycles, and channels. Here's my conversation with Rachel Shayne. Rachel Shayne, welcome back to Practical Pivots.
Thank you, Steve. I'm so excited to be here. I love chit-chatting with you. You know that.
I do. It's great to have you back. Start us off by describing R&D B2B for mere mortals. What is your new elevator pitch?
For mere mortals. We are a communications and marketing agency for hard-to-explain companies. That's what we do. Is that a good explanation?
It's perfect. Can you give me examples of what some of these are that make it so hard to communicate?
Yes, we typically work with companies in energy tech, clean tech, industrial innovation. And so there's a lot of engineering founders or, PhD founders. I always joke with them that I studied fonts and colors and narratives, and they studied, molecules and real science. So they bring the brilliance and we bring the clarity, because what they're bringing to market, what they're trying to bring to market, their ambitions, so amazing and so complicated. And the market doesn't hear complicated. They're listening for clarity. They're just busy. They're inundated with messages. And so if you don't have clarity, no one's going to listen.
So that's pretty different from last time we talked. Of all of the different focuses of expertise that you've built, how did you and Diana decide that a B2B marketing agency is the perfect thing to do during basically a tech recession?
I know. Diana and I got to work together. We were put together by a visionary founder, and actually part of the Bridge Entrepreneurs Network helped put us together at a startup at the time was called Project Canary. And what we learned looking at not just B2B, but looking at energy tech and clean tech and being part of that Project Canary early stage up through a Series B, was that B2B, especially energy tech, can learn a lot of lessons from B2C and can take some bigger swings. There's a deep political conversation to be had there, but we could see that it's possible. If you could make energy more understandable, it is possible. If you could bring things from the B2C, business to consumer playbook, over to the B2B playbook and help these amazing engineering type of founders be more courageous, that there's room for them to be also very successful, to raise money, bring in really amazing talent, get traction faster with customers, all the things that B2B companies want to do. But energy can be reluctant. Energy is also an older industry, and so it's quite insular, a lot of the same players, and we were interlopers, which took us a good 5+ years to grow that network. And then we found that we love energy because of how up close and personal it is. And so over time, as Canary has pivoted and a lot of those early people are off doing other things, we found that, someone's over here and is now running a geothermal company and wants us to do what we did for Canary over there. Somebody over here is this battery layer between the grid and compute, and they want us to do what we did for Canary. And so what we realized is we had this system of looking at brand and marketing and demand differently, was right for those types of startups, which was really narrative design, taking a more courageous a swing at the brand, which means typically with honestly any B2B company, but especially in energy, don't settle for blue. Don't settle for like another thing that looks like every other energy company. Like we could
Exactly.
take a lot of the things that we know really well and apply them and in such a way that we could help grow the reputation of that CEO and typically also a chief scientist, chief, very, very technical people, and help them learn the power of LinkedIn. Frankly, some of these PhDs or not a PhD, but just very engineering minded, can be quite reluctant to put themselves out there on the socials. But we could help them do it in a way that felt authentic and also supported the trajectory and the ambitions of the company, such that they could get traction faster and get funding faster and all of those types of things. And that's what we love to do. So we like it when it's a really hard, juicy problem. And we grew very slowly. So yes, it was challenging, and we grew just like any other startup, which was, we got one referral. We hope we did a really good job. They helped us get another referral. Then we had one of our clients took us to Zero Week with them. And we met a few other people who said, I do want to know what you guys did over there at Project Canary. So we actually built a lot of this from that origins of kind of a wild case study of Canary, which was really just applying very different tactics to an older industry. Or I should say a legacy industry, if you will.
That's perfect. Is there any better way to go into a new business than to take a playbook for one that's in a hot new industry, it's already played out, and take it to
Yeah.
someone where nobody's actually seen it before, and you seem like
Yeah.
the new bright light?
Exactly. Or people of a certain vintage, perhaps like you and I, Steve.
Fine
We've run
vintage.
right. We've run billboards before. We've done direct mail before. We know how to really rock out an event. All of the really, really tactical, sort of non-digital things, and those are highly effective in an insular industry like energy. And frankly, at a time like we're in now, which is AI makes everyone sound the same. It doesn't even matter what industry you're in. The playing field just got completely leveled. How do you differentiate? Well, it's people. It's being human. And so we realize, while we can do these things, and you can use press releases and billboards and events and honestly getting really clever direct mail in front of somebody, it doesn't mean a very expensive thing. It just means being clever. And so, yeah, we use a lot of those tactics all together to elevate the reputation, build the awareness, and do all the typical things you do as a marketing person would.
Whew. Okay, where to
I
take
know.
this? So we have I'm dying to talk to you about anchor clients and Canary, because I feel like anchor clients is such the opportunity and
Yeah.
icebergs to completely sink your
Yep.
ship for the startup at the same time.
It's true.
I wanted to talk to you about marketing channels that are currently working that aren't. I want to talk to you about your own growth strategies as a growth strategist, building your own growth strategy for your own business. Choose your own adventure.
Whew. Marketing channels.
Yes.
I know, right? So what you're not going to find from R&D, which is so clever, our naming, we decided to be super not clever with that. It's just Rachel and Diana. um, what you're going to find with us is, to us, everything is marketing, because that's where you create the clarity. The growth doesn't happen until you've got clarity, until your salespeople, your board, your investors, everybody understands what you do and how you help customers. And so when we look at marketing channels, we're not like a typical growth or demand team that's like, oh, you're going to put $5 in, you're going to get 15 back. Here's the right
Mm-hmm.
channels to run, et cetera. And again, you're talking about, what we're talking about is deep tech, which is, you're talking here about long sales cycles, B2B enterprise. And you are talking about a startup of some flavor trying to sell to a company that's quite established. For a while, that was sexy and fun, until like about the last 12 to 16 months, when it became risky.
Yeah.
And so instead, what you need to do is you've got to provide clarity. With clarity, you start to create a narrative. You design a narrative that creates a lot of trust. when people can understand something and can put it in the right context for themselves and for their own growth and company, you start to create just a lot of trust. And so for us, marketing is everything. Marketing is, of course, what you look like on socials and websites and all those things. But those channels have to all talk and work together. And so we are super old school. We have a brilliant Google sheet or, a Microsoft version of that. That's what the client needs. And we call it a momentum map, and it is every single channel at our disposal that you can ever think of. And we think, okay, for this quarter, this month, whatever, we don't work much more than 90 days out because we're talking startup.
Mm-hmm.
We say, what is the focus? Because it's not 5 things, it's what's one thing. Because to get to the ambition of raising, hiring, selling, whatever those ambitions are, we're going to build this thing consistently over time. And to do that, we know that we're going to need certain pieces to work together to get there. So we build this really great narrative, and then we start to figure out how it fits with every single one of those tactics. I don't care what the channel is, but what I want to know is, oh, this salesperson is going to be at this thing on this day, and my CEO is going to be over here. And we want the market to feel like we know what's going on and that it's coming from one place. One place is the brand. We will always say your brand is the moat. The brand is your differentiation. It's the fastest due diligence anyone will ever do on you is, do I trust you, or do I not trust you? That's your brand. And so if you can create that consistency by telling that story across all of those places, you start to create this trust and things start to build. Then you start getting invited to things instead of having to sort of pitch your way into them. And then you get to, of course, what we love to say in tech is the flywheel starts to work. But I think it can be very overcomplicated, especially once you've got I've seen the things where you've got like ChatGPT and AirOps and Perplexity and and all these growth and demand and HubSpot and all these different tech stacks running. But who is the human layer in there that says, okay, all that data and everything at my fingertips is telling me this, and I'm trying to get to there. So how do I knit that together in a way that actually makes sense to sell to another human being? Right? Like we're talking about selling giant batteries or giant pyrolysis machines. We're not selling we're not selling software seats. We're selling something that can be hard to imagine. So you have to help someone imagine it in a way that feels safe.
One of my absolute favorite talking points, and I think one of the areas we first connected, that distill the power of brand, no matter how out of style it gets, that people resonate with people, and
it's coming back again, right? I mean, it's coming like PR and events are sexy again. We've been around long enough. Again, this beautiful vintage that you and I are. We've been around where it was like, no, PR is dead or SEO is dead, all those things, and it's like, well, no. What business are you in? What is your brand look like? And then how should you go to market? And then sure, put a bunch of power behind that. But have a sober conversation about what that looks like with very few people in the room, and make sure that the people that are in that proverbial room are courageous. Because you've got to be clear, but you've also got to be courageous. Otherwise you have no differentiation. We recently redid a silicon battery logo. And it's just very typical of amazing, any founder, doesn't have to be a technical founder. And he's like, well, I made that logo on PowerPoint. I love it. It's the silicon molecule. Mm-hmm. And I said, I really understand that. And yet the signal you're giving me is 1990, not 2026. Let's make American silicon.
Yeah.
And sell it to tech companies. I'm like, you've got to be able to, someone's got to let you in the room first. So we redid it, and he was like, the board hates it. And I said, well, that's really challenging feedback to work with. And he said, you know what, Rachel, we're just going to go with it. Roll it out. And I said, that's going to be a challenge for you, but I think it's the right thing to do, because if you have 10 opinions about a logo, you're going to end up with IBM. You're not going to end up with something interesting.
I just helped a firm with their rebrand that was trying to stand out in their industry, where they really sit there and is after doing the Verblio rebrand, which was how to create a powerful marketing brand. Which
she was a pretty brand. Steve.
Oh, thank you very much.
She was pretty.
Um,
Yeah.
Thank you. I part of the reason she's pretty is I got overruled on a lot of those decisions on what I was comfortable with. I didn't want it to be
How?
pink.
Who did you let someone? Oh yeah, because you had a magenta in there. Who did you
Uh-huh.
let overrule?
So first, my whole team told me that I was wrong and that I couldn't do blue and green just like everybody else. And then
Cheers.
I
So
was
glad.
still just couldn't feel comfortable with the hot magenta. And my branding consultant at the time, who was a former Ultimate Frisbee
Uh, uh-uh.
teammate of mine from the 90s, said,
Way to
Steve,
keep it
I
in the
know you've made
family.
your decision and I don't care. I'm telling you, you're making the wrong decision. You have to trust us.
Yeah.
And he basically led the heart to heart. Like,
Oh.
I'm the vendor and you're the client, but I don't care. Like, this is the right thing
Oh.
to do. So I thought that
You
was
know.
really good. And so I've been thinking about how to set up these brand conversations, because
Oh.
you're going to go
Yeah.
between, you start off with the people you're working with, you bring them on board, then they have to take it back to their
Mm-hmm.
stakeholders, who are all not going to be as comfortable. You're going to say a few like spicy words, then we're like, ooh, spicy. Let's go with great.
Spicy.
Let's use
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
um,
Wait, I
so
want to
I've been
stay
trying
there for a minute.
to.
Don't move on from
Okay.
that because that's very
Okay.
interesting to me. Because it's, if it, I mean, part of my belief system is that brand is your moat, brand is the fast DD.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite things to do is to take a trade show that CEO or that company or whatever looks up to, and insert the new brand in there and the old brand, the legacy brand and the new brand, and
Hmm.
just and flash it in front of them very fast. And like, what are you keyed in on? Because if you look like everybody else, you're not competing with just your exact competitive set. You're competing with a broader industry, and you're competing with so much noise. So
Yes.
you've got to have something that stands out. And for you, in your space at the time, magenta was a very bold move.
It's so true. So part of the way that I was convinced is they showed, we looked at the Martech, it was 5,000 at the time. Now it's Martech
Mm,
10,000. And maybe it's back down to five, given,
yeah.
so they have all of those logos that they do in that famous graphic every
Oh
year.
yeah.
And you couldn't see our old logo anywhere. But when you put
Yeah.
in the Verbleo, the pink showed, and it was,
Then you see it, right?
okay,
It's the
Rachel,
small, it's the smallest things. Go ahead. Sorry.
how do you convince? So I'm a deep believer in brand. I am constantly talking about how I think it's one of the two most effective ROI strategies in all of business, and they're both related to humans, and they're both really hard to measure. One is
Yes.
brand, and the other is culture. And
Yes.
both of them CFOs can't stand,
Oh,
because
they
they
hate them.
are the least metric oriented. They're the least, I'm going to give you this roadmap and it's going to happen in 3 months and 6 months. And you can't do the classic CAC ROI fund that a good CFO just loves to play with. How do you convince all
Oh,
of these companies to do the right thing that builds their company in the biggest way they can?
gosh, that's a really good question. One thing I try to do is to definitely give the speech to anyone the CFO will listen to about the power of brand in terms of closing capital, talent, and customers faster, because it does. There are studies you can find out there about that. Of course, off the top of my head, I certainly can't name them. So the other thing I usually talk with CEOs about or try to illustrate is to look at branded search volume, and this is where AI has actually helped. There's a there's a of course you can use Google and stuff, but there's also Telescope where you can look at branded search within your category. And so, for example, us working on this big battery company that was looking at, hey, you're competing against X and Y, they're big. Look at their branded search, which is literally like if you had a bar chart, they were all up here. And I said, oh, and here's you.
Hmm.
Here's you way down here. So, in order to get anywhere close to them, you're going to have to be part of the conversation. In order to be part of the conversation, you have to appeal to these journalists, these influencers, like these tech reporters, these capital guys, etc. Look at the types of companies that they've invested in. You don't fit. Just you don't fit. However, if you design a brand that looks interesting and has a narrative that's believable, especially this day and age, it's not about saving the planet. It's about, I mean, we are trying to do good. I mean, we're in sustainability, clean tech. You're
Mm.
doing good by making the right people money because you're in a capitalist society. You're not changing that. So what are you doing for business? How are you helping your customers do better? So showing that and becoming this believable part of that brand set, that's the power of a brand. And so we need more case studies like this. But one of the silicon battery I told you about, that CEO, it was great. He came to our talk at Colorado Startup Week and he gave me a stat that I hadn't heard. And he said in the 6 months before working with us, they got one investor meeting. And
Mm.
since we redid their deck, which was there's a lot behind that, but that's the brand, the look and feel, the narrative, essentially. They've now had 14 meetings in 6 months.
Wow.
So they've so yes, there's other things involved. They've gotten they're better at telling their story. They've been on social longer. There are other pieces. It's not all just R&D's amazing brilliance. However, it is the power of knowing who your audience is. And so
Mm-hmm.
part of it is not just having a brand conversation. I think that what I just illustrated was thinking about your investors or your investor prospects as ICP. You're selling as your ideal customer profile. What is
Yep.
their profile? Like if they're investing in all this stuff that's super swaggy and cool and like and you look like this guy that built this thing in a garage, they're not going to open your email. It's still a person. Right? And then we'll get into you're selling a business, you're not selling fluff, like all those kind of things. So it's an ICP of understanding your audience and then inserting a brand that they can believe in or building a brand they can believe in. It still
This
sounds
is
squishy, but that's the truth.
if squishy works, you have to go with it. I totally agree. So I was just working with another client that had they'd been around for 5-7 years, but they had one anchor
Yeah,
client and hadn't figured their next, and they were going to market with just a lot of paid marketing campaigns of just
sure.
outreach without actually knowing who their ICP was or their messaging,
Mm,
and the switch between how do I talk to enough people or how do I make every conversation that I have as valuable as possible was
yeah.
a major transition.
Yeah, exactly. We partner, and we did this at Colorado Startup Week, not to keep talking about that, only because it was recent. We partner with a group called Bennu Partners quite a bit because they help startups figure out how to go get capital and how not
Mm.
to get in kind of that capital death spiral, or waste of time for CEOs. And we partner with them because getting that understanding that those investors should be thought of as ICPs and should thought of as account-based marketing is very powerful. And your go-to-market, you are appealing to real people.
Mm.
And you have to think of it that way. And I think that there is a massive reliance on spreadsheets and data when I believe it should be data and AI informed, but you've got to have human led clarity or
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing interesting. There's just
Well, there's
nothing interesting, right? Humans, a long time ago, Seth Godin wrote the book, The Purple Cow, right? Shiny objects, pick your metaphor or title. That's what we like. That's what you remember. You will never, that's Seth's thing, right? You'll never remember seeing a brown or a black cow. But oh my God, if you saw a purple cow, you would talk about it the rest of your life.
God. Oh my God, I haven't read that in so long.
No,
Um,
me neither, but I remember the story still. There you go.
I do too. With it's just making me think of like now that AI is correcting all of my emails and every
Oh,
message that I send, and they take I kind of
uh-huh.
pride myself on my tone as being quirky and out there and a little bit esoteric.
Yes.
And as they edit every single one of my interesting words and they give me perfect grammar, it's kind of like it's like plastic surgery. Do I really want to look like that?
My answer is probably not. Right? Like even I mean, I'm a marketing and branding consultant. If I looked and sounded like everybody and I was perfect all the time, there's no reason to choose me over anybody else. I mean, it's the same with any other brand. It's a feeling. I've actually been inserting, not that I'm a perfect typist or whatever anyway, I've been inserting some typos back in so
It's
that
a
if
whole new
someone's
program.
so if someone's paying attention, they're like, "Oh my God, AI probably didn't write that."
Now that is a
We've been
company I want to build.
so we take yeah so as for R&D too, we take out the emojis. Hashtags are kind of dead, so we take all those out. We've gotten rid of all the M dashes, and truly we make what we call ChatGPT ChatGPT. He's our PhD level intern, and we make ChatGPT work hard. Like, we fight with him, but he's got to go toe to toe with us in order to get some stuff across the line. We would never take his first or second best guess because it sounds like ChatGPT wrote it. Like, so anyway, yeah, that's probably one of our. I think I've ranted on that on LinkedIn before. Of like, please at least stop with the emoji headline emoji. Like, just at least get rid of that because it's a big tell.
Oh, that's so nice to hear that we're moving away from it, especially after
Let's
the
hope.
last few years. Do
Yeah.
you so moving from brand to kind of more tactical channels, how do you
Yeah.
see their role? We've all been in these trend cycles where we're basically chasing the new channel that has the biggest pop but is the hardest to explain to your CFO versus the ones that are the easiest to measure and no longer work. How do those, is that still the trend? Is that still how it works? And how do you see those supplementing your bigger brand strategies?
The way you've worded that is such a complicated answer. I'm not sure where to start, but it's a good question.
That's true.
I will
That was a
start
lot.
with, I was just talking yesterday to a tier one PR consultant we work with, and we need to kind of get out of the trades. And our discussion was, can you even believe the power of the press release these days? And so a press release, let's just say it costs $1,000 as a hard cost, depends on your wire and stuff like that. But a well-written release, and assuming your narrative on your website, which is mid-funnel, not on top of funnel, on your socials, like, let's just assume everything is knitted together really well. Your press release now, at a pretty rapid clip and a good cadence, can do a lot for getting you attention and getting you on people's minds, because it's like the newsletter that nobody signed up for and a lot of people start to get. And so, especially with AI, AEO or GEO, whatever you want to call it, one of the fastest ways to get noticed is not only to have the great FAQ and a good website and all that good stuff, but it's press releases. It's press releases and trade press. And so we hammer on those. And I'm talking some clients, we're doing a press release a week. And that sounds crazy. I
That
would have
sounds
told you
crazy.
you were crazy about 5 or 6 years ago to never do that. And you have to be careful the way you do it, and you have to be part of a plan, but you can do it. And it does work. It totally works. We took a geothermal company from being off the radar. They'd been in the market for 12 plus years. People were like, whenever a geothermal story was written, they weren't being written about anymore at all. It was all the new, sexier companies. And their goal was get us back on the radar. And we said, okay, we're going to build you up. So we built up the CEO, we built up the board, we got their newsletters, the branding redone, like all the things we do to ladder that up. And then we started with press and started warming them up, giving them some good stories, not just BS, and dialing all that in. And now they have become, whenever geothermal developers are mentioned, they're mentioned in the top three. It took us about 9 months, but we got there. And that is, paid ads would never have gotten us there, ever. So to answer your question about like what doesn't work, paid ads, at least in my world, paid ads are rough. They don't work very well.
So do you come about your new strategies and your new marketing channels based on what you see working in other places, or do you just take this Gen X philosophy of what is nobody else currently doing, and that's the club I want to be a part of?
Oh my God, I love the way you phrase that. Okay, first of all, I go Gen X, what is nobody else doing? Because it's such an easy filter. And then the second thing I do is I'm part of Sixth Sense, actually runs what I call the CMO
Oh.
Club.
Mhm.
And they run it very, there's no pitching in there. They don't pitch. It's an amazing group. It's probably over a couple thousand CMOs, and we meet every Friday and we have guest speakers and we talk authentically. There's no recording, there's no sharing, no nothing. And I get a lot of value out of that. So hearing about somebody over here tried, installing a bot and this, and we ask each other questions. And I have just found like it's just really, really nice to have a group of people that are we're only in Slack and on those calls that are very sequestered together in a very safe place to find out what do you guys see out there too, and not just in the US. And so we really like that. And it's fun too. Like our clients aren't all US only based either. So we hear things for other countries or notice things working differently that we can pick up ideas for. So we just stay curious. Honestly, it sounds really simple, all those things, and it's hard when you're tired. But the best way to stay good at what we do is to stay curious. We
That's
read
such a
the
great
weirdest
answer.
news. We read all sorts of stuff and watch all sorts of movies. We pay attention to what the youths are doing. we just stay curious and just be like, I wonder what that is.
That's the best. It's the best part of marketing is that
Right?
if you, it's the only kind of like
Yeah.
practice in business where if you follow best practices, you lose. So you have to get
Yes.
inspiration from other places, which is just such a
Yes.
great place for a liberal arts person to be.
Isn't it? I know I'm a total liberal arts girl too. But yeah, best
I know.
practices are, yeah, exactly. Best practices are going to get you the basics. You are not going to win a category. You are not going to create a category. You're not going to win a category. Not if you're going to play it so safe. So we don't play safe.
Uh, um, I want to talk about how you decided to growth market your own growth marketing company.
Oh, I don't know if I'm the best person at growth marketing my own growth marketing company. Here's what I'll tell you. We give the speech a lot of times to our companies of, look, we're not going to buy you. We've done this before for optics, but we tend to say, we're not going to buy you a bunch of fake followers. We're going to do this the right way so that you have a durable foundation to build from in the future. And especially with the way due diligence goes, because most of our companies are raising at some point or another, like you want to be clean and you want to be really genuine and you want to build it the right way with good customers and not just give away products, all those things, right? And then it becomes time to build your own company and take your own advice. And we have to be comfortable with writing what we think are brilliant pieces of content and putting it out there. And the only people who like it are our own company and Diana and myself or our clients, because we run their LinkedIn for them. so, so the truth is we are growing slowly in a very genuine way. I will say one of the things I'm really proud of is kind of having grown up in the bit of the Boulder ecosystem from the early Bradfeld Techstars days. We do give first. We do lean in pretty hard on the Ben network, on the Bridge Entrepreneurs Network. And not only because it's the right thing to do and it feels really good, but we get a lot from it. We learn in those sessions, talk about a way to stay relevant and learn by talking to those different founders and different companies and just learning from those sessions, the other mentors, they're amazing. So the truth is we are growing very slowly and very organically. We don't buy ads. We have a website. I watch it. Like we went over 100 users one day and I was like, oh, that's because it was startup. That was the day we were on stage at startup. And I'm not used to those. They're really small numbers. And sometimes it feels small, really small. But that's what we're doing. We're doing, like when you said, will you do a podcast? I was like, oh my God, I would love it. That'd be great because we probably should do some promotion. We try to do newsletters in a way we would want to do them, which is give me something that's actually valuable and thoughtful, like once a quarter. Don't hit me every week. We post on our website. We have a section called free advice, which we think is actually really good advice for people. They could just have it. It's right there. So that's it. We're growing very slowly and by referral. And we do all the work. We don't outsource, and I don't know what to tell you except that it's really hard to stomach some days that it's very slow.
That's great. Like what you're telling me is kind of like the joy of just doing a services business, which is you can just
Yeah,
meet a couple of people. You don't need that many. You can just
we
reach out and
don't.
be connected and not have to test market do ICP
Yeah.
messaging and all of that type of things. It
Yeah.
just can be more organic.
Exactly, right? We can be really organic and we can really help these companies. We can be super surgical. We don't need the whole bit. That's why we're not at agencies anymore. I don't want to get in there and like we just helped an oil and gas company with their EHS report. And I don't, and there was another agency involved, and typical, the other agency was like, who are these ladies? And they weren't nice to us. And that's, how this goes. And I wasn't surprised by it, but I was so glad I don't have to live like that. I don't need their website and their comms and all the other stuff. We're just there to do the report, and that's all we need. So small is fine, and it is good, and we only need up to 5 clients to feel very successful and to keep doing this. And so the slow burn is okay. It feels genuine, it feels right, it's set with our values. We talked about culture. That is part of our values. We're direct and honest, and that's how we will build. There were some very uncomfortable months during the summer, and here we are.
Yes.
Yes.
Let me riff on your answer.
Please.
You said that the key to marketing in modern business, that's the most powerful, as it's always been, and even more so now, is brand, which is because it focuses on people and connecting with people. And I feel the same way about the tech world moving away from SaaS and these platforms that aren't customized to anyone, and all of them adding in a layer of services because it now needs to be more personalized. So as business moves away from B2B inflexible platforms, you are there leading it with these personal touches. How's that? I just meant.
Man, you're a really good translator. And I know by being close enough to enough traction systems that I am like the visionary creative that requires integration and translation. So thank you.
I do too. Every one of us does. It's just
Right?
like it's the hardest part about being a marketer is you have to market yourself, and then people look at like, are there any
Yeah.
websites worse than marketing agency websites?
Oh, God. And
And this
then we
is what.
tried to make ours as straightforward as possible, but then I look at it and I'm like, is that page performing? And then I get in my own head and I get jealous of like a really cool one I saw. Like, I know. So here we are. Yep.
So here we are. Rachel, thank you for spending all of this time talking with me. Is there anything of all the things we thought we might talk about that we haven't hit on that really stands out you want to make sure we cover today?
I think the one thing that founders should think about, or that you and I can even think about as we bring this to our clients, since we're both in the consulting world, is people always ask, who are your competitors? And I think that's an important thing to understand. But the right question is, and the right way to think about it in our framework is the pivot to, you're competing with confusion. You're not really competing with like a bunch of logos and stuff. You're competing with confusion,
Mm-hmm.
especially this day and age. So it's really important to understand people.
Yeah, that's so interesting because it's so similar to what I used to say, which was we're competing not against all like all of my competitors together. We make up 2% of the entire market for content writers, but we are
Right.
competing against inaction of just
Correct.
the lack of ability to decide and wanting to do something and
Right.
have to make it more important. Oh, I
And
like that a
that's
lot.
something you can that's something you can sink your teeth into and build a campaign around, and like build everybody up, a sales team, and help them understand that you're competing against this thing that's really confusing. Yeah.
Agreed.
Hmm.
Rachel, what are these curious sources that you go to inspire you and give you new marketing ideas that other people should be following?
Well, you've got all the usual suspects. I'm looking at there. I'll tell you, I use a lot of Spark Toro, which you've probably heard of too. And I am loving the app.mytelescope. Um, you should check it out.
What is it?
Those are probably, it's app.mytelescope.io. It's
Okay.
search volume, branded search volume. And then I'm trying to look at my others I love. Honestly, those are two of my like secret weapons. The rest is probably everyone's already heard of. All those tech stacks, yeah, they've heard of all the other stuff. But those two, and then what Rand Fishkin is talking about on LinkedIn, I do not know him, I am not paid to talk about anything I've brought up, but he is looking at like performance marketing the way I believe it should be looked at
Hmm.
as well, which has nothing to do with attribution and everything to do with how do people find you and how do they buy. And so I'd say those are my secret weapons. I follow him quite a bit and I like him a lot. And then if you're a marketer and you want to just more B2B marketing stuff, Exit 5 is great. Their content's
Perfect.
stellar and their webinars are great.
The question I asked you earlier about how effective a marketing channel is based on how much surprise that came directly from Rand. He was one of my absolute favorite interviews.
Oh,
His he
he
brought
is
his
amazing.
brought his wife on to talk in the middle of it and just say hi to me. It was
Oh,
great.
that's really cute. Oh, I totally fangirl him. And all of my mentees, I have this little bank of mentees through the Ben Network, and I love them so much. And I'm always like, just watch this video. Oh, here's another one from Rand and from Amanda that he works with. I just think he's humble and he's kind and he's smart and he's exactly what we need. He's exactly what marketers need. I think people are trying to be really loud out there, and he's trying to help. He's trying to get through the confusion.
He really does. Wow, that's so fun. We used to do weekly meetings where we'd watch on every Friday we'd watch his Friday video. But yes, I'm
Oh,
so glad. Yeah, I'm also a fanboy.
you're a good
All right,
CEO, Steve. I want to see you
Rachel.
CEOing again.
As always, we could do this all day long. Thank you
I
so much for
know.
joining me. It is so great to have you.
You're amazing, Steve. Thank you for everything you do for our community and for giving people like me a minute to come dork out with you about brands.
It was absolutely my pleasure. I will talk to you on the next round.
That sounds great. Thank you.